Hi guys, so in this video we're gonna take a look into Malaysian legal system. So Malaysian legal system, there are many categories of law. We have contract law, tort law, criminal law, constitutional law, property law, trust law, administrative law, international law, and so on. So these laws emphasize the general rule of conduct, how you conduct things. For example, contract law, so how the contract being conducted. If it is a construction a contract, so there is a rule of conduct when we need to pay. For example, when we need to pay the contractors, the main contractors, or what are the obligations of clients, what are the obligations of contractor, and so on. So, based on English dictionary, law is the body of enacted or customary rules recognized by a community as binding. So, a common rules accepted by the community, any rules. So that is a law, provided that is recognized by the community. And based on Sir John Selman jurisprudence, the body of principles recognized and applied by the state in the administration of justice. So law consists of the rules recognized and acted on by courts of justice. So law is generally the procedures and the rules of conduct or an act which one uses once every census. We use our senses to harmonize the our convenience with another person. That is law. We try to get along with each other and using the law. We give something, we get something. We try to harmonize this convenience. And based on the federal constitution, on article 160, 160 bracket 2, law includes written law, the common law, in so far as it is in operation in federation or any part of the federation, and any custom or usage having the force in the federation or any part thereof. So there's a written law, which is common law, and also custom. So the aim of the law is to attain justice. We want to get justice. We want to be fair to each other, and then to encourage of doing what is right, or just in a particular set of circumstances. You want to do what is right, or injustice in a certain situation. A situation when you are in a contract, there's a situation where you are the consumer. So we need a law to encourage of doing what is right, doing the justice, uh, carry out justice. In Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, this is one political unit, but there is a difference in the set of laws. And the two important links in Malaysian law is the links between the Parliament and the Federal Court, where the Parliament makes the law and then the Federal Court carry out, execute the law. For example, you have a law of drug trafficking that is created by the Parliament, and then the Federal Court will carry out the law, enforce the law. So our law originated from the England common law, based on the common law, in India common law and contract law, and then based on Australia on land law. Supreme law that applies throughout the country is known as the Constitution of Malaysia. The Constitution is the supreme law. So this Constitution contains legislation, uh, the bodies that makes the law, courts that enforce the law, the administrative aspects of the law, how do you carry out the law, and the power of government. This is also stated in the Constitution of Malaysia. The concept of government monarchy in Malaysia and the rights of every citizen. So the Federal Constitution of Malaysia, Yang di-Pertuan Agong act as the head of country, and then the power is divided into the three main authorities, which are the executive authority, legislative authority, and judicial authority. So under executive we have Prime Minister and the Cabinet, and then under the legislative authority, the ones that create the law is the Parliament, then the House of Representatives, Senate, and under judicial authority you have the chief judge, and also the courts. So these are the separation of power. We have the body that the law, execute the law, legislative where you create the law, and then judicial where you evaluate when you carry out the law. So let's take a look at each of the body. The executive body involves in administrating the nation and ensuring the government policy will be carried out according to law. So you have a set of law that limits that governs the policy. So the executive body will administer the nation and then create the policy based on the law. So the government departments which assist in administering the nation are part of the executive. So any government such as the Department of Environment, DOSH, Department of Safety and Health. So these are the ones that are administrating the law, and they form part of the executive body.
So the power of executive need to be carried out according to the power granted by the law, by the constitution, so it will not be void and be held ultra vires or no effect. Ultra vires mean beyond uh, the power granted by law. For example, in this case, the executive, the prime minister cannot create a new legislation, a new law. That is the power of the legislative, the parliament, or the minister of home affairs, KDN, cannot simply declare a person guilty of, for example, guilty of smuggling. So the power of the verdict is held by the courts, by the judge, not by the executive body. So next is the legislative. So legislative, the parliament in the federal or in the uh, Dewan Undangan Negeri in the state don't. So legislative will enact law so that administration could run smoothly. So they are the ones that create the law, pass the law, discuss on the law, debates on the law, and it cannot interfere as to the administration carried out by the executive. So they create the law, but they don't execute the law. For example, the legislation on creating a new body, for example, UNIMAC. So they only pass the law to create a body named University Malaysia Police, for example, and then the law will be executed, will be administered by the executive. Next is the judiciary body, the courts, the judge. The law which was enacted by the legislative, by the parliament, for example, will not only govern the people, but also the nation, including the three government organ as executive, judiciary, and legislative. So if dispute arise as to whether certain action contradict the law, then it might be challenged in court. So if there's dispute, for example, any action taken by the prime minister, for example, ultra vires beyond its powers, so we can take it to the court, to the judiciary body, to be challenged, to be uh, meted out verdict. So the court will give a verdict on that dispute. The system of court is under this organ plays an important role in determining as to whether action is done as legal or illegal. So the court will decide and judiciary will interpret the law enacted by the legislative and at the same time applies the said law in arriving at their decision. So if the law has been passed, been enacted, uh, the power of interpretation lies within the judiciary, not lies within the public or executive bodies or the legislative body. So the power to interpret, for example, the court defined that there's a law on child abuse. So how do we define child abuse? What are the elements of child abuse? How to interpret the element of child abuse? So that lies within the power of judiciary. They are the ones that has the power to interpret the law. And lastly, all parties will be treated equally, and the judiciary is free to make judgment without caution, fear, or favor. There's no bias. There's no extortion. So judiciary is free to make any judgment based on their interpretation within their circumference of power. So these are all the players within the construction project team, and there's all uh, there are laws govern them. Client, the main contractor, between the client and main contractor, there's a contract. CNS engineer, for example, uh, they are governed by the common law, and also law of tort negligence. For example, if the engineer uh, before can be found as a negligence of carry out their duty as an engineer, which causes, for example, building to collapse. So we are all governed by the law. Next, we want to define what is a state. So based on Article 160, bracket number 2 of the Federal Constitution, state means a state of federation. So Sultan or Yang di-Pertuan Negeri, Sultan or Yang di-Pertuan Negeri is the head of the state. Dan Terengganu, Yang di-Pertuan Negeri 9. So every state has a government and has a written constitution which institute who shall govern and how. So there's a set of law for a state, how they are governed, how they choose their head of state, how they choose their prime minister, the chief minister of the state, for example. So they are a separate set of laws. Next is the constitution. According to this legal dictionary, a constitution is the fundamental law of the state or nature. It's the base law. So every law needs to need to follow this set of constitution. For example, there's a law that segregate people in Malaysia. So, but that's law uh, contradict with the constitution. So, if it contradicts, then that law will become void. So, Article 4, bracket 1 of the Federal Constitution state that the Constitution is the supreme law of the Federation, and any law passed after Merdeka Day which is inconsistent will be void. Any law passed after this Merdeka Day, after the Federal Constitution, will become void if it is inconsistent with the Constitution, as I mentioned earlier. So you can look up on this case. For example, this case of Retana versus the government of Malaysia, and also case of Repco versus public prosecutor. It is the example of the it gives you the verdict on definition on the dispute between the state between the constitution and another law. For example, Repco holding, if you search it up, it is uh, it is on the dispute between the power of power of prosecuting power of prosecuting. Okay, next is Article 73 of Federal Constitution. In exercising the legislative powers conferred on it by this constitution, so the parliament may make laws for the whole or any part of the federation and laws effect outside as well as within the federation. So parliament make the law within the federation, within the power of the federation, persekutuan. So the legislature of the state, Dewan Undangan Negeri, make laws for the state. Simple as that. So you have uh, on Article 74, the Constitution states the federal list and state list, and also there is a concurrent list. So federal list constitute of external affairs, national defense, internal security, and citizenship, etc. But for state list, we covered the state will cover Islamic law, land, agriculture and forestry, and local services, and etc. So mostly, state will cover on the law of the land, how do you purchase land, and how the ownership of the land, and also on agriculture and forestry, which area can be gazetted as forest, or a permanent forest, and etc. So there's a separation of lists. So uh, Parliament will pass law based on the federal list, and um, state legislature or Dewan Undangan Negeri will pass law based on the uh, state list.